North Korea is a country where the government decides the exact length of your hair and deploys inspectors to verify it. Where watching a television drama from the country next door carries a longer sentence than violent crime does in most democracies. Where a single spoken word, one honorific from across a border, carries a minimum 6-year labor sentence. Where your neighbors are formally required to report you if any of it goes wrong. Everything in this script is documented. United Nations investigations, defector testimony, North Korean state media, and independent expert research all confirm these rules exist and are currently enforced. Together, they describe not a government managing its citizens, but a system that has decided the citizens themselves, their appearance, their language, their morning routine, and their television habits are the primary thing requiring management. 15 rules, starting with the one that ends lives, ending with the one that sounds like bureaucratic theater until you understand what refusing it costs. Number 15. Watching a K-drama can get you executed. In 2020, North Korea passed the Reactionary Thought and Culture Rejection Act, criminalizing foreign media at the highest level. Its main target is South Korean entertainment. Watching or possessing Korean dramas can result in up to 15 years of hard labor, while distributing them can lead to execution. Enforcement is strict and public. Trials are broadcast, and defectors report executions for sharing content. The regime sees these shows as ideological threats, portraying a reality that contradicts state propaganda. What is ordinary entertainment elsewhere becomes subversion here. In North Korea, even a love story can carry consequences measured in years or life itself. Number 14. Saying one word can send you to prison for 6 years. In 2023, North Korea introduced the Pyongyang Language Protection Act, regulating everyday speech. The law targets South Korean linguistic influence, including words, tone, and casual expressions. Terms like appa or certain honorifics are banned, along with speech patterns associated with Seoul. Even intonation can be considered a violation. Penalties are severe. Using restricted language can result in at least 6 years of hard labor, with harsher punishment for repeated offenses. Public trials reinforce the rules. The goal is control at the most basic level of communication. In North Korea, how you speak is not personal expression. It is regulated behavior. Number 13. Executions are mandatory public events and attendance is required. In North Korea, executions are not only legal punishments, but required public events. Laws mandate that they be carried out in front of communities to maximize deterrence. Citizens are required to attend. These gatherings include public denunciations, followed by execution, making punishment a shared experience. Defector accounts describe these events as deeply traumatic, involving entire communities, including children. The offenses can range from media consumption to minor violations by global standards. The system is designed for visibility. One punishment, witnessed by many, reinforces control. Attendance is not optional. It is part of the process. Number 12. Leaving the country is classified as treason. Leaving North Korea without state permission is not treated as illegal travel, but as treason, one of the most serious crimes under its legal system. First-time border crossings now carry sentences starting at 5 years of forced labor, with harsher penalties for repeat attempts or those who assist others, including possible execution. Many who flee into China are captured and returned. Reports describe interrogation, abuse, and imprisonment under severe conditions with high mortality rates. Women may face additional violations upon return. The border is heavily militarized, with shoot-on-sight enforcement reported. Leaving is treated as betrayal, and returning can be even more dangerous than escape. Number 11. Your neighbor is legally required to report you to the state. North Korea's neighborhood surveillance structure, the Inmanban, divides residential areas into units of approximately 20 to 40 households, each assigned a unit leader with formal responsibilities that include monitoring the behavior of every person in the group and reporting deviations to security authorities on a regular basis. This is not an informal expectation or a cultural norm sustained by social pressure. It is a formalized institution with documented reporting requirements, scheduled meetings at which unit leaders account for household activities, and direct consequences for unit leaders who fail to identify violations within their assigned group. Failing to report your neighbor is itself a reportable failure. The scope of monitored behavior is total. Foreign media possession, unauthorized travel between regions, religious practice, portrait maintenance standards, speech patterns, dress choices, visitors to the home whose identity and purpose must be documented. The Inman Band leader is the state's embedded presence inside the residential block, which means that every person 2 doors away understands their neighbor is professionally and legally obligated to document anything observed. The effect is self-censorship at a depth that requires no uniformed officer on every street. The rules enforce themselves through the structure of ordinary residential geography. Every conversation happens within earshot of a required reporter. Every choice of clothing, every arriving package, every house guest is a potential entry in someone else's mandatory documentation. North Korea built a nationwide surveillance network out of the neighborhood and made participation in it a legal duty. Number 10. Every home must own a dedicated cloth solely for wiping the leader's portraits. Every North Korean home is required by law to display portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il on a prominent interior wall. The portraits must hang at the correct height, remain precisely level, and occupy a visually central position. Not tucked into a corner, not obscured by furniture, not placed subordinately to any other object in the room. The obligation extends well beyond display. Official protocol specifies that portraits must be maintained spotlessly clean at all times, using a dedicated cloth reserved exclusively for that single purpose, never applied to any other surface in the home, never repurposed, stored separately from all other household cleaning materials. Adults in North Korean households wipe portrait glass each morning as a daily practice, executed with the regularity of a hygiene routine, except that neglecting it is not a personal health consequence, but an entry in an ongoing ideological evaluation that follows the resident throughout their life. Damage to a portrait, a crack in the glass, a water stain, a curled paper edge is treated as a criminal offense. State media have reported punishments for incorrect portrait placement. Household inspections conducted through the Inman Band system verify portrait condition during regular compliance checks. Even newspaper pages carrying a leader's image carry legal weight. A page that is torn, incorrectly folded, or used for a secondary purpose constitutes a violation of the same reverence obligation applying to the framed portrait on the wall. North Korea requires citizens to own a cloth with one function. The function is mandatory. The law is real. Number 9. Religion is illegal and youth laws make it worse. North Korea is constitutionally atheist. The practice of any religion, Christianity, Buddhism, shamanism, or any other faith tradition, is classified as anti-socialist behavior, criminalized under multiple overlapping legal statutes, and enforced with penalties that reach the most severe available. A national youth law explicitly prohibits young North Koreans from engaging in any form of religious activity. This encompasses not merely organized collective worship, but private prayer, possession of religious texts in any language, display of religious symbols, and any expression of faith-based belief in any context. The offense is classified as ideological subversion, placing it among the most serious categories in the North Korean legal hierarchy, adjacent to treason in severity and treatment. The United Nations Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in North Korea documented extensive defector testimony describing underground Christian communities operating in extreme secrecy, using elaborate concealment and warning systems developed over years of practiced survival. Those discovered face outcomes ranging from lengthy imprisonment in political prison camps facilities from which release is rare, and survival rates across extended sentences are low, to execution in cases involving the organization of religious communities or possession of foreign religious literature. The specific intensity of enforcement around Christianity reflects a regime awareness that Christian missionary networks operating near the Chinese border have historically assisted defectors. Faith and escape became associated threats. North Korea's response was to criminalize both with comparable sentences and pursue both with comparable institutional energy. Number 8. Exotic marriages and wedding ceremonies are illegal. North Korea's prohibition on foreign cultural influence reaches into one of the most personal decisions a person makes: who they marry, how the ceremony is conducted, and what that ceremony visually and culturally communicates to those attending it. The law banning exotic goods and customs explicitly includes marriage ceremonies deemed non-North Korean in their cultural form. A wedding conducted in a style influenced by foreign custom, whether South Korean in origin, Western in aesthetic, or derived from any outside cultural tradition, violates the anti-exotic provisions of current North Korean law. The ceremony is a regulated event, expected to conform to approved cultural forms that the state considers genuinely Korean and untainted by outside influence. The same framework prohibits receiving, trading, or possessing any product classified as exotic in its foreign origin. Making or selling clothing in non-North Korean styles is explicitly named as a criminal act. Arranging a hairstyle that does not conform to the government-approved list, whether as the stylist performing it or the customer requesting it, constitutes a violation carrying legal liability for both parties involved in the transaction. The law's scope reflects the regime's foundational premise: culture is not a personal domain, but a state resource. Individual decisions about how to celebrate a wedding, what to wear on a given day, or how to cut one's hair are, in North Korea's official framework, decisions about national identity that the state holds legitimate authority to control, criminalize, and punish. Your wedding day belongs to the government's cultural property register. Number 7. Women are officially banned from riding bicycles. The North Korean government classified women riding bicycles in public as behavior incompatible with feminine dignity, and enforcement teams actively enforce this prohibition through direct street-level intervention, including physical prevention and confiscation of bicycles from female riders. This is not a cultural preference or a soft social norm that politely discourages the behavior. It is an enforceable restriction applied by patrols that documented stopping women from cycling and, in confirmed cases, removed bicycles from women riding them in public spaces. The official rationale offered in state communications was that cycling is inconsistent with the appropriate public presentation expected of North Korean women. The bicycle prohibition sits inside a wider framework of gender-specific movement and appearance regulations governing women's public life in specific and intrusive detail. A 2010 enforcement crackdown imposed fines or hard labor on women wearing trousers instead of skirts in public. Skirt length is regulated, with any hemline above the knee constituting a punishable violation. Tight or flared trousers, see-through garments, and any clothing considered revealing or foreign in aesthetic are comprehensively prohibited under the same dress code provisions. Enforcement teams composed of students and members of women's organizations patrol streets specifically to identify dress code violations and report them for formal consequence. Women navigate daily movement and daily clothing decisions with consistent awareness that each choice is subject to inspection, challenge, and potential criminal referral. North Korea made the bicycle a gendered political object and the trouser a punishable ideological statement. Number 6. Jeans, piercings, and mullets are banned as weapons of capitalism. Kim Jong-un's regime launched a systematic crackdown on Western fashion that reads like a very specific grievance list compiled after an extended and deeply personal study of early 2000s youth culture aesthetics. Officially banned items include skinny jeans, blue jeans of any cut or style, mullet haircuts, spiky hair, brightly dyed hair in any non-natural color, nose piercings, and lip piercings. Branded t-shirts carrying foreign logos, text, or imagery are prohibited under the exotic goods ban. Any item of clothing or personal accessory considered to originate from or visually reference capitalist foreign culture falls under anti-exotic prohibitions already encoded in standing law. The Socialist Patriotic Youth League functions as the primary street-level enforcement mechanism for fashion violations, a youth organization whose members patrol public spaces with the explicit mandate to identify and directly confront individuals presenting in ways deemed foreign in appearance. These confrontations are not gentle social nudges. Violators are brought before People's Committee meetings for formal rebuke, required to attend re-education sessions, and in cases involving repeat offenses or perceived ideological defiance, referred for progressively more serious consequences. The specific and long-standing targeting of denim reflects a regime framework in which the blue jean is not a pair of trousers, but a delivery vehicle for American cultural ideology, a statement of affiliation with a system North Korea has spent decades framing as its primary civilizational enemy. The leg coverings are a geopolitical position. Both are illegal. The Youth League is checking. Number 5. The government publishes an official approved haircut menu. North Korea issues a state-approved list of acceptable hairstyles and enforces compliance through a system combining state media campaigns, neighborhood monitoring, regular peer pressure operations, and nationally broadcast public shaming of identified violators. Men's hair must be maintained between 1 and 5 centimeters in standard specification, trimmed at minimum every 2 weeks. Older men are permitted a slightly more generous allowance of up to 7 centimeters. The 2-week trimming schedule is a maintenance requirement with compliance monitored through the same neighborhood surveillance infrastructure, tracking every other behavioral obligation, not a lifestyle recommendation or a hygiene suggestion. Women are permitted to choose from a list of 14 approved styles, according to reporting drawn from North Korean state media sources. The options are divided along marital status lines. Married women are directed towards shorter cuts, communicating domestic status. Unmarried women are permitted slightly longer styles, with restrained curling. Hair coloring beyond natural tones is banned outright. Any style resembling a South Korean or broadly foreign aesthetic falls under reactionary culture prohibitions regardless of its technical appearance on the approved list. Hidden camera operations have been conducted in North Korean cities specifically to identify men with hair exceeding approved length. The footage was broadcast on state television, publicly identifying and naming violators by neighborhood and workplace. A man whose hair grew to 5.5 centimeters was not quietly corrected. He was broadcast nationally as a case study in ideological weakness, a person whose scalp had communicated, however unintentionally, an attachment to foreign values that the state found unacceptable. Number 4. All radios come pre-locked to state channels by law. Every radio and television set legally distributed in North Korea arrives from the state supply system pre-tuned and technically locked to approved state broadcast frequencies. The hardware cannot be adjusted by the owner to access any other signal. This limitation is a deliberate design specification, not an accidental technical constraint or a manufacturing quirk from a particular era. Owning any media device capable of receiving foreign broadcasts, a radio tunable beyond state frequencies, a television capable of accessing non-state channels, is illegal under the foreign media ban and unauthorized technology prohibitions. The offense is classified as counter-revolutionary, carrying the full penalty range that classification implies across North Korean Penal Code. Foreign printed materials fall under identical prohibition. Books, magazines, newspapers, and any publication originating outside the country or produced without state authorization are banned as impure publications. The same youth laws prohibiting foreign dancing, foreign speech, and foreign dress explicitly criminalize the receipt, production, copying, or viewing of any such material regardless of its format or apparent harmlessness. The result is an information environment in which the only content legally available to any citizen is whatever the state has chosen to produce and distribute on any given day. No alternative account of any event, domestic, regional, or global, can be legally accessed, shared, or privately discussed. The country's information supply is a single channel. The channel is the government. The lock on the radio hardware ensures that relationship remains structurally unalterable from the citizen's end, which is precisely why the lock was built in. Number 3. You need government permission to visit the next town. Moving between counties, provinces, or cities within North Korea without state-issued authorization is illegal. A citizen crossing a county boundary without a valid internal travel permit is in violation of domestic movement law and subject to punishment under the applicable penal code, regardless of the purpose of the journey or the distance involved. Enforcement is built directly into the country's administrative geography. Internal passports and work assignment documents tie each citizen to a specific residential and occupational location. Security checkpoints between regions verify documentation at road and transport intersections. Neighborhood unit leaders track household member movements and are required to report absences that exceed normal daily patterns. The practical consequence is that ordinary human behavior, visiting a friend in a neighboring city, traveling for work opportunities, relocating closer to family, requires navigating a bureaucratic permission system that can refuse applications, delay processing indefinitely, or simply fail to respond. People do not move freely within their own country because no legal category of free internal movement exists. Every journey beyond the immediate local area is either a permitted act or a criminal one, and the distinction rests entirely on documentation the state controls. For the majority of North Korean citizens, the complete geography of their life, where they were born, where they live, where they work, where they will eventually die, is substantially a decision the state made on their behalf and retains legal authority to enforce with criminal consequence for the duration of that life. Number 2. Owning a USB drive with foreign music is a criminal offense. The North Korean state's parallel crackdowns on unauthorized technology and foreign media content converged in enforcement operations that intensified sharply from 2021 onward, specifically targeting the physical devices through which outside content was quietly penetrating the state's information blockade, despite years of official prohibition. USB drives, external hard drives, Chinese-manufactured smartphones, and any device capable of storing or playing unauthorized media are classified as illegal technology. Mass raids conducted by security forces seized Chinese-made mobile phones from ordinary citizens across multiple cities simultaneously. Individuals were detained specifically for the content found on confiscated devices: South Korean music videos, drama episodes, foreign news clips, with sentences calibrated to both the nature of the content discovered and evidence of whether it had been shared with others in the community. In 2021, official propaganda explicitly described foreign phone users as evil enemies of the state, and the informant system was specifically activated around this category of violation. Neighbors were offered direct financial rewards for reporting individuals observed using Chinese mobile devices in residential settings. The combination of hardware seizure campaigns, criminal penalties for content possession, and financial incentives for community denunciation produced an enforcement environment targeting the precise technology through which outside reality was reaching North Korean citizens. North Korea identified the USB drive as an ideological weapon and classified the person carrying one accordingly. The device that stores a teenager's music collection in most countries is, in North Korea, the object of a nationally coordinated security operation with multi-year prison sentences reliably attached to its discovery. Number 1. Every home must display the leader's portraits or face punishment. The foundational domestic rule of North Korean civil life is not a speech regulation or a behavioral restriction. It is a decorating mandate. Every residential space where a North Korean citizen sleeps, Every apartment in every city, every rural dwelling, every room occupied by any household across the country must display framed portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il on a prominent interior wall. The portraits must hang at the correct height. They must remain precisely level at all times. They must occupy a position of genuine visual prominence, not placed in a corner, not hung low, not obscured by furniture, curtains, or any other object. They must be maintained in a condition the state considers reflective of appropriate reverence for their subjects. Household inspections conducted through the Inminban structure verify compliance. The neighborhood unit leader's responsibilities explicitly include confirming that every portrait in every home within the assigned group meets the required standard. Any observable neglect, a fractionally crooked frame, visible dust accumulation on the glass, a portrait hung at a slightly incorrect elevation, is recorded in the ideological evaluation that forms part of each citizen's ongoing political file and follows them throughout their life. The regime's stated logic is that the leader's permanent presence in the home expresses the inseparability of the Korean family from its leadership, that the Kims are paternal figures whose images belong in the domestic space as naturally as family photographs belong elsewhere. What this produces in practice is a country where every citizen wakes each morning under the gaze of a government portrait, falls asleep beneath it, and owns a dedicated cleaning cloth to ensure it remains appropriately honored. The portrait is watching. The requirement is law. The cloth is mandatory. And none of it is metaphor. Those are 15 of North Korea's strangest rules. The ones that leave you speechless. A law executing people for television dramas. A haircut menu enforced by broadcast humiliation. A dedicated cleaning cloth for a mandatory government photograph. A bicycle confiscated from a woman for reasons of dignity. A word. One spoken word, carrying 6 years minimum in a labor facility. Every rule on this list originates from the same fear. That if North Korean citizens encounter a different haircut, a foreign story, a different accent, or a woman on a bicycle going somewhere without permission, they will begin to wonder whether the version of the world they have been given is complete. The harsher the penalty, the greater the underlying anxiety. A regime that executes people for dramas is not confident. It is afraid that the drama is more compelling than the portrait. The rules exist to prevent that realization. The sentences exist because the realization keeps arriving anyway. Subscribe. These stories matter. See you in the next one.